Hey, what up guys, this is DiplexHeated again and welcome to my first tutorial video for Men of War Assault Squad, or Men of War overall. I'm pretty sure that the editors work the same. I've been spending most of my time in the Men of War and Men of War Assault Squad editor. There are plenty of, DLCs and expansions and 2s here and there's and Vietnams and you name it. Plenty of Men of War games out there. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6, 7 or something. Assault Squad 2, Men of War Original, Red Tide, then this Crimson thing. It's not called Crimson, what's it called? Is it called Crimson? It's that, when you're part of a penal battalion or something. Or is it penal battalion? I don't know, penalty? Penalty? No. And then there's Vietnam, etc, etc. And hey, they're making Battle of Empires. 1914, 1918. It's gonna become greenlit on Steam, or it's on green light at least, and they're gonna release that as an expansion. It's a World War I, so there's gonna be like 8 Men of War games. Insane. Anyway, so this is my first tutorial. I'm gonna be going through some basic commands and just generally everything I use when I make my videos. I said I was gonna do a tutorial when my Siege of Feodosia got 1,000 likes, and it has way over that, I think. So I was there checking it yesterday, so I'm gonna make one. I hope everyone will enjoy. Let's go through some basic commands. I'm not really good at making tutorials. Just me having a conversation there. I was looking at the new Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and I thought it looked good for once in a long time, and it has Kevin Spacey in it as well, and he's a really good actor, so that could be nice story-wise. Really interesting to see where that goes, and I think Sledgehammer Studios are they're pretty good. I don't know if I liked anything that Infinite Ward, or is it Infinite Awards? Infinity Ward? Yeah, I think it's Infinity. I'm not sure. I didn't like much of what they put out since after Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the first one, Call of Duty 4. Anyway, so escape. Map editor menu. Right now we are in the map editor. Right now we are in the mission editor, and right now we are in game. So how do I choose between these 3 different modes? F1 is the in-game mode. F2 is the map editor menu or mode, and F3 is the mission editor menu. And through this escape button, you can pretty much control the parts of the different editor. I can load a map here. I can load a mission here. You all understand how that works. So that's F1, F2, F3, main keys of the different F keys, so to speak. So let's go ahead and jump into the map editor menu and load up a map. To load up a map is obviously crucial in order to get something going. Let's load up 2v2 Farmstead. I'm not going to make my own map. If you wanted to, you could create a new map using the map editor menu and simply selecting new, picking size, some basic textures, and get going. So now that we loaded up the map, I'm in F2 mode here. I have the map in front of me. Everything in F2 mode is dependent on the basic map itself, such as objects that you can see and that you can move and edit. For an example, in F2 mode, I can take this haystack and move it around. This is all part of the actual map. At the moment, there are no units, there are no scripts, so nothing of that is visible to me at the moment, because I am not in the F3 mode. So, just, quick summary of the F2 mode. Everything that simply just belongs to the map itself, the world map. Not so much scripts, sounds, units. Although that you can place most of these things in the F2 mode, professional mappers choose to create separate mission packs for their map. If they want to have a night mission and they want to do different missions with different scripts, then they use the mission editor to create one on the existing map. So we're going to leave the map alone here and swap directly over to the mission editor menu. In the mission editor, as you can tell, I cannot select anything on the ground. You can tell it's completely impossible. That's because I'm not editing the map now, I'm editing the mission. Right now, as you can tell, the mission, we don't have a mission. We could choose to create a new mission, or we could load an existing template. Let's load a multiplayer template since we're running on a multiplayer map. As you know, there are plenty of different multiplayer game modes, such as battle zones and combat. Let's load the battle zones for an example. This will take some time. Right now it loads up everything that is dependent for you in order to play a battle zones game. So if you were to load this map up in multiplayer, you would have this skybox and you would have these following objectives that you could capture. Remember, I can't still do anything with the map, because right now we're only playing a certain mission that is dependent on this map. We can choose to go out and load another mission template, which would be combat. That is another multiplayer game mode. That will obviously change the map as well. Perhaps not the skybox, but as you can tell, these multiplayer objectives are gone. So I'm switching back to F1 mode here, and you can tell that everything is pretty much normal. I don't have any units to play around with, but I do have some of these markers. These are probably spawn points themselves for the actual map. If I wanted to make my own multiplayer map, I could change these around. It's all possible, and of course I could create different multiplayer game modes. So now that we are in combat, we can choose to make our own for just our own very single player purpose. And seeing as I kind of like this skybox, I will remain on combat, remove everything that I find multiplayer related, hit F3 and save as 0 or single player or whatever you like. Now we're on a new template. This is our own mission template. The map remains the same, but everything here is pretty much our own from now. Skybox, for an example. Interesting thing to play around with. You have more F keys at your disposal. To access the Skybox menu that you have seen me hit many times, F6 is your picking there. This is also called the environment menu or selection. All in all, it pretty much only changes some of the lighting and all, which is pretty much dependent on the actual skybox itself. We have plenty of different presets. I think that they will pretty much fill all your needs. You don't really need to go and create too many custom ones. Here are a few from the skirmish missions. As you can tell, they make the map look a bit different. Very nice when you're playing around if you want a bit of a foggy one. Perhaps you want more of a clear one. Bright day, foggy day, kind of, you know, dawn, night even. Very interesting. And there's just, you know, the list goes on. Of course, if you wish to remain on this skybox, do not forget to save your mission again. That is done by clicking escape and saving again. Boom, everything is good. So, we will head back to the F2 menu, and I will simply show you some quick and easy, just, you know, regular structure commands, unit commands, etc. That are actually handy when you're in the actual editor and not in the in-game mode. I think everyone knows how to play the game itself. So, let's head to the menu on our side. We have everything that you could pretty much imagine here. Vehicles, humans, construction parts, along with some various script-based services and, you know, more detailed equipment. Let's head to the vehicle menu. Let's head down here to the tanks. Pick, for an example, regular tank. I'm gonna want a Jag Panther, and I'm gonna place it down right there. My Jag Panther is now placed on the field, as you can tell, and it is just an empty Jag Panther ready for combat. You don't need to do anything else at the moment. Of course, crewing it would be an important step in actually getting it to work properly. But there's no other scripting involved. It's all fairly easy. Let's head back up to human. Let's place a few. Let's see here. Let's place a few German tank drivers. For the variant, I'm just going to go over Tankman 2 there as well. And here we go. We've got our units down on the field. Just a basic tank crew. Right, so there we are. Now, if we head back to F1 mode, we're in the game. It's like you're actually playing the game.
Verstanden.
You've got the units here at your disposal, and you can choose to do whatever you want with them. of course. You can crew the tank itself. And it is there's no fussing about here. Everything just runs like the game itself. And of course you can click the tank and choose to do what you want with it, so to speak. You can have it face this direction. And so it will. Now, looking down at the numpad menu, you've got different keys. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Each of those numbers represent an in-game team. For an example, by default, player 0 is selected. And by time, you will get to know the colors. As you can tell up here, we've got a gray square. That represents player 0. If we head back to the map editor menu, click this tank, you will get its detailed information in the section to the right here. As you get more and more comfortable with this, you can change things around, such as the skin, winter camouflage, some sort of woodland camouflage, along with a desert camouflage. It's very cool indeed, I must admit. But of course what we're going to be focusing on here is the player itself. Now this is player 0. If I was to place another 3 tankmen, they too would be player 0. That is all by default. Now if I wish to create a bit of an action scene here, I ought to create 2 different sides who can fight each other. I think that is obviously key in having fun in this game. Unless you just like to build things and watch it live on its own. I am going to place down a M4A4 Firefly, and I will actually crew it with 4 British tankmen. Nope, that is a Sturmwick. Units aside, not that important. Any unit can pretty much drive any tank. I believe they all have different skill levels though, and attributes that apply to different things such as shooting and driving. I'm not entirely sure. That doesn't really occur. You know, that doesn't seem to bother me when I play this game. I just usually go with tankmen for tanks though. Seems like the logical thing, doesn't it? But that aside, I'm gonna make these guys player 1. Heading back into the game mode itself, as you can tell, I cannot control them. I still only have command of the Jagged Panther itself. But as you can all remember, we have the numpad keys. You guys probably remember what number player 2 is. Well, it's player 2. What color is it? Red. Let's click 2 on the numpad. That's actually green. Never mind. That's red. There we go. Number 1 is red. Number 0 is gray for player 0. I should have mentioned that, but you probably noticed that yourself, player 1 here. So the player number obviously represented is the key itself on the numpad. So let's click player red, player 1. There we are. Let's get the British crewmen into the tank. You can swap back to player 0, which is the grey one. Notice the fact that these tracks are actually winter. So let's change the track itself here to default and have it just be. And right now we've got 2 combat-ready tanks who we can both control. Right, so off a start, as you can tell, they're not reacting. They are enemies of each other. Every single team is actually at war with the other. I believe there are ways to mask this as a... how should I put it? As a red player. So there's some connection there to him being allied with the other and not being shot at by them. I'm not entirely sure, but he can be player 0, but he can mask player green, meaning I'll control him when I click. Wait, there ought to be some way to do this. I'm not entirely sure, but you catch my drift. I'm certain that you do. Anyway, so that aside, before we actually go into the more final parts of this tutorial here, I am actually going to show you some basic commands for the editor itself when it comes to just moving objects around. For an example, let's head to the construction area. Let's head down to social. Let's place a few fortifications out here. let's place a suitable object. Let's place a few tank traps. Scroll down the list and place a few sandbags as soon as we find them. And let's place a few, well, something. There ought to be more tank traps further down. Here we go. Right, this doesn't look very good. As you can tell, when you're picking and selecting objects, you can't actually rotate them by the mouse or dragging and clicking and all that. Everything is pretty much keyboard related here. To rotate an object, select it, hold in C. To change its axis, hold in X. So I can make it lean down a bit more like that. Right. You can add all these sandbags around here. Just make sure they're not flying and you'll be set. There we go. Looks about right. Let's take these tank traps and set them out here and there. Not aiming for any type of realism, but you catch my drift. There we go. Right. Let's also take a cannon. We'll go for a British cannon, since I'm certain that the Jag Panther will make scraps out of the Firefly. I could be wrong, but I'm not going to take a chance. So let's deploy an M5. It ought to be able to penetrate the armor of the Jag Panther if we're lucky and if it hits the right spot. Let's place it around there, rotate it. You can also change the altitude of various things, but that doesn't seem to be very handy in most cases unless you're placing a detailed piece of equipment somewhere that just looks better if it's on a table or something like that. Then again, as always, let's select the British and let's bring out 2 riflemen to crew the gun. Let's also bring out an officer, a radioman, an MG gunner, and a bazooker, just to spice things up. Of course, let's remember, we don't want to have these allied with the Germans. Scroll down, select player, red, head back into the gaming mode where you actually control them. Click number 1, and we're in control.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Have them crew the different guns. Set down your soldiers. And we're ready for combat. So, let's bring these 2 tanks back here. In a very easy selection, just dragging your mouse over them. Let's add another tank to the field itself. That's pretty easy. Copy paste. Control C, Control V. Delete is to delete. Quite easy. And let's put this Firefly as a reserve up here. Well, hidden at least. Now, F3. We're in mission 0. None of these units were placed in the mission mode, but if I was to place a few Germans in the mission mode itself, it wouldn't have an impact on the game itself. It's just they would disappear if I was to, save the map and not save this mission. So these guys will always be on this map in this position as long as I save this map, which would overwrite the existing thing. That's why I actually recommend placing people in the F3 mode so that you can have them on a different mission layout, and they will be there if you load that very mission layout. I think that all makes pretty much sense. So the last thing we should do now is to get this scenario going, and you do that by clicking Start. When you click Finish, your units will end up in the same position as they were before you clicked Start.